Hello, and thank you for joining us today for Frost & Sullivan's latest webinar from our Aerospace Defense and Security Practice. Today's event is titled Global Commercial Aerospace Outlook, Emerging Growth Opportunities. My name is Anna, and I oversee Frost & Sullivan's Growth, Innovation, and Leadership briefings. Today's presenter is Timothy Cooter, Senior Industry Analyst. Timothy has over 28 years of aerospace industry experience. Timothy has a deep understanding of the aerospace and technology convergence, and he also helps support established aerospace companies and the startups alike in developing their growth strategies. You can follow him on his Twitter and his LinkedIn. With that, I would now like to hand the presentation over to Timothy.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you very much for that warm introduction. I would like to thank everybody out there listening in on today's webcast. Good morning, good afternoon, and great evening to wherever in the world you might be listening in. So today's subject is on commercial aerospace market outlook for 2019. We are coming off a year in 2018 of growth. A lot of exciting things going on, and we will get right into it here. So today's focal points are we're gonna go over the projected 2019 delivery plan. We're also going to look at the scorecard from 2018. We're going to do a regional overview across the globe on commercial aircraft. We're going to talk about trends shaping the aerospace landscape, including digitalization of aerospace, supply chain and vertical integration, and then we're going to talk about the future of electrification and the eVTOL space. It's kind of lagging behind a little bit there. We should come back. There we go to the slide we're looking for. So talking about deliveries, so in 2018 we saw 1,853 delivery of commercial aircraft. You'll see on the bar on the left-hand side there, a lot of those were the narrow-body, single-aisle aircraft. Looking forward into 2019, we are looking at 2,027 deliveries, and that's an increase of about 9.4%. Throughout 2018, we saw the suppliers really push to the limits. Times when aircraft were piling up there at the factory, just waiting on parts. With the increase in production, 2019 is going to be a challenging year for the suppliers. Moving forward, we'll start talking about some of the platforms for the Boeing company. Obviously, that single-aisle aircraft, the 737. 2019, we should see the NGs, the next gens production coming to a completion, as the backlog is well under 100 now, and that'll help out to get to producing all 737 MAXs out of the Renton factory there. The overall backlog for the 737 platform is at 4,763. Moving on to the 787, there's projected 150 units, moving up about 10 of an increase in production from 2018 to 2019. Current backlog on the 787 is around 622 units. The 777X should be going into flight test this year. There's a backlog of around 105 of the legacy 777 that the Boeing company is still getting produced. And then the 777X has a backlog of 326. Moving on to the 747, which celebrating its 50th year. Also looks like it's going to be coming to an end of production, projected out there about 2022. The backlog on the 747 is down to 24. Program got revived a little bit with the UPS orders. Sad thing, it was a great aircraft. I've had the honor of getting to work on that aircraft quite a bit throughout my career with several different companies. There's something about that 747, seeing it take off of the runway, that's just absolutely majestic. Last, with the Boeing company, I'd like to talk about the NMA. So Boeing just recently made the announcement that they pushed off the decision on that mid-market aircraft to 2020. What we do know about the platform is that Boeing has around 1,000 people assigned to the project for research and development, and there is a belief that there's a gap out there in the market that needs a platform to take the place of the aging 757s and 767s. And then before we move on to Airbus, also during 2019, we do expect the Boeing company to get the Embraer deal finalized, so the E-Jets will be joining the Boeing family later in 2019. Moving on to Airbus, we'll start out with the new kid on the block in Airbus, as 2018 did show the completion of the deal for Bombardier joining Airbus and transforming that C series into the A220 aircraft. The backlog on the A220 stands at about 480 aircraft, and plan is to produce about 68 of those platforms in 2019. Airbus also has the A320, which is obviously the flagship for the manufacturer. You got an astronomical backlog for the A320 family at 6,056 going into 2019. The production of A320 family aircraft is planning on up to 680, so that's really going to stretch that thin. The one excellent thing that Airbus has going for the A320 family is they are manufacturing that aircraft on 3 separate continents: China, North America, and Europe, in a couple locations there. Moving on to the A350, competitor with the 787, planning on 110 deliveries for 2019. The backlog is a little bit more on the A350 than the 787 at 659 as we closed out 2018. Airbus has stated that they're looking at new engine option for the A350, looking into the future for efficiencies. And then the A330 did get the first Neo delivered. The backlog for the A330s is 295, and 235 of those are with the new engine option. So we do expect the CEO version to be closing out soon, ending production on those. And then the big news here in the past few weeks is the A380. Due to some cancellations of orders, we end up with only 17 remaining to manufacture, and they are expecting to finish the production on the A380 in 2021. And now I'm going to pass it back over to Anna for the first poll question.
Thank you, Timothy. Audience, I have just pushed out our first poll question, so if you can take a moment to select your answer, and we'll reveal the results later. But the poll question is, which region has the highest demand for commercial aircraft? Is it North America, Europe, Asia Pacific, Middle East, Africa, or Latin America? So I'll hand it back over to Timothy.
Thank you very much, Anna. And now we will jump into the regions. So the big things to note, just on a high level, looking at this this chart here, is the number of aircraft that went into the APAC at 803. This is for 2018. Obviously, a high demand, and about half of those were going into China alone. 418. India took 107 aircraft, and Japan took 50. And then Indonesia, the Philippines, and Malaysia all took in the high 20s. As far as airlines, China Southern Airlines took 72 units. China Eastern took 67. Indigo, India, there took 46. As far as the APAC goes, we do expect it to continue with the with the demand that it's been showing. The next highest demand for aircraft was the European region, and the United Kingdom and Russia took 76 and 75 aircraft. Ireland took 54. And then the rest of those 437 aircraft were dispersed across the region. Again, the narrow body is the hot platform in the Europe region. As far as airlines, Ryanair there out of Ireland actually took the most. They took 51 of those 54 aircraft at Ryanair. And Aeroflot in Russia Airlines took 40 aircraft, and the EasyJet took 33. Moving on to North America, United States took 244 aircraft out of those 375. Notable Delta Airlines and its connection partners took almost 100 of those 244 aircraft, so they have been updating their fleet aggressively. Southwest took 44 aircraft, and American took 22. Canada has been rounding out their deliveries on the 787s, and then notable WestJet did take their first 787 newer airline up there in Canada. Moving on to Middle East and Africa, this is the region that is a little bit skewed from the rest of the globe, as the wide body demand is higher than the narrow body in the Middle East and Africa, and that's mainly the Middle East countries. United Arab Emirates, Qatar, and Saudi Arabia took the most amount of aircraft in the region. And then looking at the airlines, it was Qatar Airways took 27, Ethiopian Airlines took 17, and Saudia took 17. And the last region that we will cover here is the Latin America region. And Mexico took 36 aircraft out of the 91 in that region. Brazil took 17, and Chile took 12. The rest of those 91 aircraft are spread across the region. Next, we're going to talk about some of the trends that are shaping the aerospace landscape. There are several trends, and we'll focus on a few. We know that the trend for the strength in the narrow body production rates, that's going to continue growing for the next few years. We don't expect that to change at all. We've been looking at digitalization, and we're going to go in a little bit deeper into the digitalization. Also consolidation, and then vertical integration we'll be talking about. Also high-tech composites and manufacturing processes that have really brought new opportunities to OEMs, MROs, and suppliers for aerospace. And then we'll talk about the future of aerospace and how it's going to affect commercial aviation in the future through electrification and the eVTOL space. And now we are at the next poll question, so I will turn it back over to Anna.
Thank you, Timothy. So our second poll question is, which tech space has the most opportunity for digitalization? Is it planning and scheduling, disruption management, marketing, flight operations, or technical operations? Back to you, Timothy.
Okay, thank you, Anna. All right, so discussing digitalization of aerospace, the digitalization of aerospace, it includes several things like big data analytics, data integration, Internet of Things. Pretty much every aspect of the business is affected by the digitalization and where it's going. And looking at digitalization of aerospace from a high level, I think that the only thing that you can say about it is it's convoluted, that there is a lot of space for growth. We've seen OEMs, suppliers, third parties all jumping into the race trying to take their claim on this space. It has grown into a $1.5 billion business in 2018, and it's got double-digit growth written all over it for the next several years. The one item that seems that it does have a lot of opportunity is bringing everything together and creating communication between the systems. So it does affect based on the poll question. The answer is really all of them, from planning and scheduling, which includes network and fleet, pricing and forecasting, revenue management, cargo management, sales and distribution, including merchandising and distributing and direct connect, marketing, content management, loyalty, programs, merchandising, e-commerce, mobility, and then getting over into the other business side of it, flight operations, including flight assurance, fuel management, baggage, ground, crew management, tech ops, engineering, materials, configuration and planning, and distribution management, also as far as crew scheduling, recovery, and passenger communication. And you'll see on the slide there just a few of the examples of the different companies that have jumped into this space, and it's by far not all inclusive of everything that's out there. But we do have Boeing Analytics listed there, and Airbus Skywise, Honeywell Direct, Go Direct, GE Aviation Predix, Lufthansa Technique, Avatar, and Rolls-Royce R2 Data Labs. And next, we'll talk a little bit about supply chain and vertical integration. Like I mentioned before, we do expect the supply chain to be pushed to the limits for sure in 2019, as it was in 2018. There towards the end of the summer, the backup of all the aircraft, and I don't think anybody was immune from the backup. One thing that we see OEMs doing, and suppliers as well, we see a lot of vertical integration, and we expect that vertical integration to continue on. With the A320, they're planning on manufacturing an additional 69 aircraft over what was manufactured in 2018, and the 737s are planning on adding 80 aircraft to that current cycle. As far as examples on vertical integration, we see all the way from the raw materials, components, subassemblies, and aftermarket, all being affected by vertical integration. They had the announcement for Boeing Company and Safran formed a joint venture to manufacture APUs. GE Aviation here in the last few years has set up to manufacture raw materials for ceramic matrix composites down there in Alabama. And one of the items, like the Boeing Company, instead of pushing for vendors and suppliers to supply all the different parts of the aircraft, the wings for the 777X were brought back in-house. They built a $1 billion facility up there in Everett to manufacture those wings that are composite. And then as far as the aftermarket goes, there has been express from OEMs and suppliers to get into the aftermarket, obviously in the digital platforms like we already talked about, also even in maintenance and aftermarket services. And now we'll go back to Anna to cover the next poll question.
Thank you, Timothy. This is our last poll question, and it reads, what time frame do you anticipate seeing flying cars? Is it 2020 through 2024, 2025 through 2029, 2030 to 2034, 2035 to 2040, or after 2040? So select your answer, and we'll reveal the results later in the session. Over to you, Timothy.
All right, thank you very much, Anna. And now moving on to the next space is electrification and eVTOL. So we have been looking at this space, and 2018 it really did show a big turn in both of these spaces, the electrification and eVTOL. So electrification, it does include, a lot of times people talk about it and they say, hey, wait a second, that's already being done on the 787 because there's so many electrified systems. So it does include that, but we're more looking at the space of electric propulsion, which pretty much every supplier and OEM has at least entered this space for electrification and eVTOL. There's been several transactions of companies being picked up or at least heavily invested in. From Airbus down on your lower left of your screen there, you'll see the EFAN, and then Aurora Flight Sciences there on the right-hand lower that Boeing company has invested in. That Zunum also on the top left, Boeing has invested in that company. Along with this space, it's like there's been a lot of startups that have surfaced, hundreds of them. Some of the major constraints, obviously the battery, and it seems several people that you talk to that are out there very close to the market all talk about trying to find that magic battery. Also, for sure, with the eVTOL space, the air traffic control is a major concern, and we don't really think that that's going to be a viable option until we do get autonomy approved and working to the point where the general flying public can trust it. And then there's the certification concerns that is just it's holding up not only electrification but also the whole eVTOL market due to the have to fly around congested areas and whatnot. As far as that battery technology, we're looking at probably later 20s before that can be available, and it's probably going to be in a race with autonomy and air traffic control. And now we will wrap this up with a conclusion. So we talked about the production in 2019, that almost double-digit increase in production, and the high demand for narrow-body aircraft. We do expect that high demand in the APAC region to continue on, and the digitalization will grow. The end user, the customers, airlines would be very, very welcoming to anybody that can provide a turnkey platform that can do it all, of course. And then we do believe the supply chain is going to be pushed to the limit in 2019. That's probably going to be the one thing that holds up these OEMs from meeting their goal, is if the suppliers can't keep up, and OEMs will continue looking for any means and any abilities for vertical integration. And then last, we talked about that future of aerospace with electrification and the eVTOL space. And we do believe that that's going to press forward with research and development. We don't know if we're that optimistic about it being a 2022 or 2023 market entry for any of those guys. All right, and now I will pass it back over to Anna.
Timothy, so quickly I'm going to go over the results of the 3 poll questions, and then we'll move on to the question and answer session. So the first poll question, which region has the highest demand for commercial aircraft? The majority of our audience, 100%, indicated Asia Pacific. The second poll question that we asked, which tech space has the most opportunity for digitalization? 100% of our audience indicated disruption management. And lastly, we asked the poll question on the time frame for flying cars, And it looks like we have that time frame is anywhere from 2020 to 2024. So thanks again for those that have participated in our poll questions. So we're going to move forward into our live questions here. We'll try to answer as many questions possible live. If for some reason we do not get to your question, Timothy will take that offline and get back with you. So let's go ahead and get started on our first question here. Now, Timothy, in your presentation, you mentioned the NMA. What direction do you see the decision for the NMA going?
Oh, thank you very much for that question. So the NMA, the new mid-market aircraft. So Airbus believes that their A321 is going to fill that gap for that mid-market, basically with the 757, which is, by the way, a great aircraft. At the same time, it's like the surprising part about that 757 is they only manufacture about 1,050 of those, which compared to some of the other airframes it's low. It really is, even with all the success that the 757 and how popular it has been. I think with Boeing moving the decision to 2020, it's probably going to be a situation where I believe it will be the platform that's going to be sought after is going to be something that can replace that single aisle, the 737, with a little bit of upgraded technology and possibly materials. Thank you.
Very well. Moving on to our next question here. Now, concerning the electrification and electric propulsion, how do you see it entering the market?
So I see electrification and electric propulsion. So the way that we're looking at it is probably the first platforms that do get to enter that market, probably in that 20 to 25 time frame, are going to be hybrid, just because the battery technology isn't quite there yet. As it evolves, that's going to open the gate for electric aircraft to become part of reality for commercial aviation. The other part of it is what space in commercial aviation is it going to enter. I think that without a doubt it's probably going to enter in the regional aircraft space first. Regional aircraft aren't that there isn't a high amount of sales, but if electrification can take over in that space, it should propel that to be maybe even one of the more sought after ways to travel commercially. Thank you.
Thank you, Timothy. So as a reminder, under the Attachments tab, we have our existing and upcoming research document, and also we have a link to visit our Aerospace, Defense, and Security website. Our practice does provide global market intelligence, thought leadership to execute key growth opportunities, and advisory services across 6 main program areas. So please click on those links, and let's move on to our next question here. So I'd like to hear your take on the recent announcement of the A380.
Yes, Anna. I think that for the A380, I don't think it's really a surprise to a lot of people. It's probably a lot of people saw it coming. It is sad that because it's a magnificent aircraft. And it's like I think that the 747 has been on the same trajectory for the last several years, and even just the Dash 8 didn't go over, I don't think, as well as what was anticipated from the get-go.
Very well. And we have one more question here. How do you think the trade wars with China are going to impact the industry?
Oh, wow. Yeah, so I think that probably the bigger question on on China is will COMAC get the C919 going? It's been on a slow path to in flight tests. The other space with China, I think that Airbus was genius to get that factory going almost a decade ago over there for the A320 factory, A320 family, and then Boeing got a completion facility going over there for the 737, which I think is definitely a move in the right direction. I'm not sure how much it's up and running, but I know they are delivering aircraft out of that space over there, which anything to take some of the pressure off of the Pacific Northwest there is needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Timothy. So this concludes today's session. Now, for those of you that joined us in the middle of the session, please know that the on-demand will be available shortly. And we want to thank everyone for joining us today. I have pushed forth our contact details information slide. We do have Timothy's information, so if you have any additional questions, feel free to reach out to him, or you can also reach out to Jackie, our marketing and communications consultant. Thank you, everyone, for your time. Enjoy the rest of your day.